So there's a lot of confusion right now all across the political spectrum. The media is being bad. The left is going crazy. The right's going crazy. People want to know, is World War III going to start? What's this between Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Trump? I am going to explain that all. So this is a video of what the Middle East is 101. And also, hey, I told you so. I was right. Now, what I was right about when I told you so is last week, I knew this wasn't going to be popular, and it was one of my least successful posts and video clips of all time, but I said I disagreed with Trump getting rid of John Bolton. Now, before you start screaming neocon warmonger, let me try and explain how I thought getting rid of John Bolton actually pushed us closer to war. Now, I said the reason why you keep John Bolton around, people like John Bolton, is because they're a deterrent. And it was the analogy I used is having John Bolton is like having a sign on the White House saying, beware of John Bolton. Like you put up with a guard dog, beware of dog, beware of John Bolton. And the Iranians and the Islamic Republic and America's enemies know, hey, if we push America too far, there's going to be someone inside the White House, John Bolton, who's going to say, bomb him. Okay, so it acts as a deterrent. So this is sort of equivalent to the left saying, how could a shooting possibly happen at a music theater? It was a gun-free zone, right? How could shootings possibly happen in a gun-free zone is sort of the global equivalent of this. But to understand what I'm talking about, we really have to analyze what the Middle East is and what it's not. So if you're confused right now, I'm going to make the argument, not that you're a bad, ignorant person. I'm going to say the reason you're confused is actually because you are a good person and you're being blinded by your humanity here. And what I mean by this is Westerners tend to have a flaw where they look at the world through Western eyes, and that can sometimes be fatal. This is Obamaism 101. Okay, so John Bolton is nation building, bomb them, protect America, answer force with force. But this is the language that the mullahs in Iran speak. So what I said is, if you remove John Bolton, this is a signal of weakness to the Islamic Republic. This isn't an olive branch. Now, this is the problem. Westerners would see this as an olive branch. Hey, we got rid of the guy who kept saying bomb, bomb, bomb. Now will you meet with us and talk on peace terms? That's how a Westerner would view it. That's probably what you were thinking they were thinking. That is not how the Islamic Republic sees it. The Islamic Republic says, oh, they got rid of John Bolton? That means they got rid of the guy who's going to say, let's bomb him. So let's test and see where the new line is. Because the Islamic Republic isn't this sad, misunderstood, victim of U.S. imperialism. No, this is a Sharia state. And in the Constitution of the Islamic Republic, they say the purpose of the IRGC, this is their CIA, their Quds force, their international force. What they do is they sponsor cells of resistance. This is what they call any Shia militants. So they find Shias anywhere across the world. They funnel them money and arms, and their goal is to create cells of resistance to start uprisings that they can then use as negotiations and political machinations globally. This is what the Houthi rebels in Yemen are. The Houthis are just a random tribe of Shia Muslims that the Iranians found, and they hate Saudi Arabia, and Yemen's right on Saudi Arabia's bottom. So they found these rebels, they pumped money and weapons, and they pumped radical rhetoric into them, gave them the capabilities to take over the government. They took over the government, and now Saudi Arabia had a hostile country right below it, and Saudi Arabia started a war with them. This is Iran 101. They sponsor Hezbollah. There's drug trades in South America. There's a lot of reasons why the Islamic Republic is bad news bears. So I said, with John Bolton gone, expect an attack from Iran or Iranian proxies within the next week or two. There was an attack the next week where, okay, so there's going to be a debate of what goes on here, but it really is the same thing. And the reason is because there was a drone attack and a missile attack on a Saudi oil production facility, cut their oil production in half, hit 5% of the world's oil supply. If you're going to do a false flag attack and you're just going to start screaming false flags, this is not the place you'd shoot yourself in the foot if you're making a false flag. It makes no sense to do that. Now, the Houthi rebels immediately took responsibility for this. Now, the Houthi rebels have said they listened, the Ayatollah Khomeini is their imam, they listened to him, and the IRGC has come out in public and said, yeah, the Houthi rebels are us. Woohoo. So they both public stated that they're one and the same. So essentially an Iranian proxy took credit for it. And what we're talking about now is we don't actually think the Houthis might have had the capabilities to hit this oil facility. It's likely that these missiles might have come from the other side, from Iraq, not from Yemen. So Either way, it was an attack by Iran or it was an attack by Iran. This is sort of what we're debating here. Because the Houthis would not fire on Saudis without the Iranian. That's not how Iranian proxies work. So there really is no debate among the informed community of who is behind this. Now, if you talk to Ben Rhodes, this was Obama's advisor behind the Iran deal. He's saying, he thinks it's idiotic to compare the Houthis to the Islamic Republic. And this is what the left is trying to say. The Houthis are different than the Islamic Republic. Like, no, the Houthis have said they're not, and the Islamic Republic have said, no, they're not. But then sometimes they get up in English and say, no, we're not. But they both have admitted publicly that they are the same thing. Okay, so this brings us to how do we avoid war? And the way to avoid war here is not to negotiate here. The way to avoid a full-scale war is to attack the Iranians. And people aren't going to want to hear that. People are not going to want to hear that. But you have to understand, this is not Sweden we're talking about. This is the Islamic Republic of Iran. They respect strength and nothing else. That is the language they talk. What would deter this? And I had a conversation with a PhD political history and an Iranian dissident. And what I had thought was the best strategy, and you can talk about this, is I thought the best thing to do is for a Saudi strike backed by the U.S. on Iranian military ships in the Straits of Hormuz. So decrease their naval capacity and their capacity to take ships. Let the Iranians know that if they venture out into waters, it's going to, this is not a slap on the wrist. This is a slap in the face. And his point back to me was, if you do that, Iran will start to launch cruise missiles and it could lead to full-scale war. What you need to do is actually take out Iran's missile capacity within the Iranian state. Now, here is the big problem. I have been advocating since the beginning that we need to stop Iran, but the way to do that is not boots on the ground in Iran. That's a bad idea. Because I see there is a potential galvanizing effect if America drops troops into Iran, or if there are missiles fired on geographical Iran right away. This could have a negative effect of galvanizing the nationalistic and pro-Iranian sentiment within the country for the mullahs. Now, currently, the mullahs don't have a lot of support. A couple of years ago, there have been uprisings across 56 different uprisings happened in Tehran, in the Gatrajan region, which is like nowhere. So there is widespread dislike of the Islamic Republic. And the argument I've been hearing from Iranians who want a regime change here is, if the Americans go in and attack Iran, this will finally be the catalyst that lets Iranians rise up, because they don't have guns and have military, and they know they're completely outgunned by the Islamic Republic. But if they see there is a Western presence going to attack the mullahs, this is the push they need to topple the mullahs from within. And it's a bit of a dicey proposition here. Who knows who's right? But if you don't respond to the Iranians here, I was right about Bolton, there will be another attack like this and another attack. If you don't respond, if there's just words and words and words, the Iranians know, okay, that's the line. We can bomb Saudi Arabia, we can bomb U.S. allies, we can take ships, we can do all of this, and as long as we say we didn't do it, and as long as we can send Javad Zarif, our propaganda minister, onto Western TV to say, no, we are not responsible, then nothing bad can happen. It's all talk. Because, again, they're not Westerners. They respect strength. So here's how things line up in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is our ally. Are they really an ally? Nah, this is more the enemy of my enemy is my friend thing. Now, the number one people say is Saudi Arabia was responsible for 9/11. And to an extent, that is true. There were elements within the Saudi government that were responsible for 9/11, and they did fund terrorism. But the Saudi Arabia of 2001 is actually now the Qatar of today. So Qatar is now actually filled in that role more. So Qatar is funding a lot of Muslim Brotherhood projects, pro-terrorism projects. A lot of this money is actually now by the new terrorism funders, Qatar. So there's this new balance in the Middle East since Obama really started to capitulate to the Iranians. And it is Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states against the more invasive Islamist states, which are Iran and Qatar. So Iran is the Khomeinists. This is like the Shia Muslim Brotherhood /ISIS/1984. It's a weird place. And their goal is to create global Sharia law based on the rule of Ayatollah. And you have Qatar, which is sort of their new bedfellow, which is sort of pushing radicalism, funding terrorism worldwide, and the Muslim Brotherhood primarily. And the old Muslim Brotherhood people within Saudi Arabia, like Khashoggi was a Muslim Brotherhood guy with ties in Saudi Arabia. The new Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, has actually realized the Muslim Brotherhood And Iran actually pose a greater threat to the monarchy than the West or Israel or any of that. So they're now against it. So this is not so much our ally, but the enemy of my enemy is what Saudi Arabia falls into right now. So those are the sides you need to do. So people like Linda Sarsour and Ilhan Omar, and they're on the side of Qatar and Iran. And to some extent, Turkey is now with that faction. And the other faction in the Middle East is sort of everyone else. That is sort of how things play out now. So this is the stage that's been set. And remember, I would like it if Iran thought like Westerners. If a olive branch to tyrants actually worked, we would have peace. But you have to remember how World War II started. Hitler would annex the Rhineland, and Neville Chamberlain got in there, and he said, okay, if we just give him this, he won't take anything else. Then he's in Czechoslovakia. Okay, we'll give him Czechoslovakia, nothing else. Then he's in Austria. Okay, Austria, but nothing else. Then he's in Poland, and then you have to go to war. This is the equivalent. What Iran just did is they tried to annex the Rhineland to see where the waters are. And if you do nothing here, if you go to the Neville Chamberlain Obama theory of politics, you're going to get more violence. The only way to avoid a full-scale war is to actually have a coherent military strategy in response to the Islamic Republic. And it really saddens me to just watch people on the... I mean, I know the left is going to be crazy here and say, well, Obama and the Iran deal, they avoided war. Obama started the countdown to World War III. And Trump's done a very good job of trying to avoid it. But it's a very counterintuitive here for Westerners to hear. The way you avoid a full-scale war with Iran is you actually have to slap them across the face now. Because if they don't, right, if you slap them across the face, they know, okay, there's a line, we back off. If you do nothing, they're going to say, okay, so the line's here. Is it here? Is it here? That's the next thing, because that's always what happens. So I love it if they could be reasoned with, but again, this is a government. Now, the people hate this government that wants to rule the world on their Sharia state. They fund terrorism internationally. They are a messianic, totalitarian, theocratic nightmare that's not going to go away unless we do something about them. And one final point on Iran here that makes it different from the whole other Middle East. I know it's Shia and Sunni, but that's not really a thing. If we're talking about reestablishing an Iranian nation, no Arab country is really that nationalistic because there is no culture and history really behind a lot of countries except maybe Turkey. Again, they're not really Arab, they're Turks. Arab countries are basically created 100 years ago, but Iran, Persian Empire, Iran actually does have a national identity that extends beyond religion. So when we talk about if we just knock over the Islamic Republic, it would just be the same as Iraq, that's not true. Iran is a very special circumstance here as the sense that they do have a national and cultural identity that extends beyond just Islam. So Iran is a real civilization, a real culture that would be able to sustain itself sort of culturally and not just completely fall apart without these sort of ayatollahs ruling it. So hopefully that explains a little bit about what's going on. If you're wondering, what's happening now, if the media freaks out over Trump doing a strike, that's just the media being idiots. With this whole locked and loaded, Trump's locked and loaded. He says locked and loaded. Oh, he's taking us to war. There are two people in the media who are saying this. There's people who are saying, okay, Trump's saying locked and loaded. He's pushing us totally to war. There's people who say that and know they're lying. There's people who understand the problem and saying, oh, Trump's crazy, when in fact they actually know what's going on. They just want to hate Trump so much that they're misreporting the news. These people are committing malpractice and shouldn't be on the news. Then there's the people who are saying this, but they actually believe it. These people are too ignorant and therefore should not be giving you the news because they're not qualified to be reporting on it. So hopefully you have a better understanding of what's going on here. And what I'm saying is pushing back against them here is actually how you prevent a war. And I don't want war with Iran. No one reasonable wants a war with Iran. But Iran wants war with the world. And the way you stop that is you have to punch him in the mouth. And it might not be pretty. It might not be what Westerners want to think. You might not want to hear it. And I know we're all tired of regime change. But the Islamic Republic is an evil force that will keep pushing this line if nothing is done. And the way you avoid more conflict is actually to push back now. So hopefully we're all in a better place now. Angry comments, please commence.